And good morning. And I'm going to start with, the question this morning of, is it well with your soul? Our morning messages, for those of us that are here, we're typically, stronger. At least outwardly presenting as stronger because, we're faithful in attendance. And sometimes it's useful to take that opportunity to try to dig real deep into the scriptures, but that's not necessarily the best thing for us all the time. And this lesson is more about emotional knowledge. What are we really able to do and take and respond to? So, as the years have gone by, it has become, increasingly obvious, at least to me, that there are going to be moments in our lives where everything seems to be going fine. Can't see any problem, at least no major problems. We kind of delight it. Oh, wow, you can take a deep breath, and, it's nice that things are like this. And, then there are going to be these moments that, everything appears to be going wrong. And it can be amazing how quickly it can transition from one to the other. But I suggest that both of these conditions present a challenge for the Christian. When life is good to us, when everything is just, going along fine, quite rightfully we can take pleasure in this. In Ecclesiastes chapter 3, what gain has the worker from his toil? I have seen the business, that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he's put eternity in man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. I perceive there is nothing better for them than to be joyful, to do good as long as they live. Also that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in his toil. This is God's gift to man. So when life is going along well, when the job is going smooth, the family is all healthy, enjoy it. Take comfort in it. But we need to be careful that when this happens, we don't forget that where did all those blessings come from? Sometimes things going along well. Your job is going along well. You're keeping the boss pleased. You're keeping the customers pleased. The family is being prosperous. We get into the thinking that, I'm doing things right. I'm making this go right. Jesus gave, and issued a parable, to illustrate this point in Luke chapter 12. And he said to them, take care and be on your guard against covetousness, for one's life does not consist of the abundance of his possessions. And he told them a parable, saying, the land of a rich man produced plentifully. And he thought to himself, what shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops. And he said, I will do this. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones. And then I will store all of my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, and drink, and be merry. But God said to him, fool, this night your soul will be required of you. And these things you have prepared, whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasures for himself and not rich toward God. Now, the passage I read in Ecclesiastes, the advice there was, if you're working hard and you have, food, if you have, positive product from that, enjoy it. It's God's gift. But you see the fine line between that and, Jesus' parable here for the rich man. Oh, well, I've worked hard. I've had this bountiful harvest. What am I going to do with it? Well, I'll store it all away so I won't have to work anymore. But Jesus is pointing out that, that type of thinking, first of all, it produces pride and arrogance. And it also, as we start thinking of ourselves, oh, well, look what I have done. I've managed the growing seasons. I've produced good crops. I've managed all of the servants right. It produces an arrogance, which reduces our love for God and for our fellow man. In Matthew chapter 5, what we typically think of as the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus starts this by identifying the basic mental attributes of God's people. Look at this. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward in heaven is great, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Christianity is fundamentally built on a meek and humble attitude. There's not much place for pride there. And that's the challenge when things are going so well. I won't read this, but this is from 2 Corinthians chapter 12. Paul is trying to impress them that they should take him seriously, and he points out all of the visions that he had received. And in fact, he had seen such things that he couldn't speak about them. Yet, as he notes here, that so to keep me from being conceited because of the surpassing greatness of the revelations, a thorn was given to me in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to harass me, to keep me from becoming conceited. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this, that he should leave me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weakness, so that the power of Christ will rest with me. That's one of those fundamental attitudes within Christianity that is so incompatible with the world. And when we have prosperous times, that's the challenge that we often face. Yet, we need to pause and consider the dangers that might await us. Like I said, everything can seem to be going fine. And all of a sudden, tragedy hits. Challenges hit. Things that might be difficult to deal with. The storms come. In Psalms chapter 34, when the righteous cry for help, the Lord hears and delivers them out of their troubles. And the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. we can know that intellectually, but at the same time, there are these things that come along that, kind of trip us, leave us maybe staggering a little bit. And there are a variety of things that could occur at work. Oh, well, you have week after week with a new boss who doesn't treat you well, who seems to be prejudiced against you, who would like to get you fired if he could. We could be ostracized because of our faith. We could, for a variety of reasons, lose the job that we need to help feed ourselves and our family. Or we could be going through marital problems. Or we have children that encounter problems. Or we can lose loved ones. We could go to the doctor because of issues we have, and the diagnosis is not very good. All of those things are there that challenge us. And you can be going along at 1 minute thinking everything's fine, and the next minute you get a call or someone makes a comment and you realize, no, it's not doing fine. And we know from the passages that God will help us. God is there, but it's still hard. And, so many, because of their misunderstanding of the gospel and their relationship with God, it is these times that challenge them. How many people have you heard say, why would God let evil prosper? Why would God let this happen to me? They've been taught that God is loving and will always take care of us. But, they interpret that to mean, well, God's not going to let me suffer because He loves me, right? Of course, that's not what God has promised. In Hebrews chapter 11, a passage that deals with faith and all of those people who exhibited faith. We start at the beginning and we see how these people overcome difficulties. But as you get further down in the chapter, what more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, and David, and Samuel, and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises, stopped the mouth of lions, quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, were made strong out of weakness, became mighty in war, put foreign armies to flight. Women received back their dead by resurrection. That all sounds pretty good, right? But notice the continuing list. Some were tortured, refusing to accept release, so that they might rise again to a better life. Others suffered mocking and flogging and even chains and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn in two, they were killed with a sword. They went about in skins of sheep and goats, destitute, afflicted, mistreated, of whom the world is not worthy, wandering about in deserts and mountains and dens and caves of the earth. And all of these, though commended through their faith, did not receive what was promised, since God has provided something better for us, that apart from us, they should not be made perfect. Those are part of the promises God has made to His faithful. People like to go a lot, to Romans chapter 8. I'm going to pick up here verse 35. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Well, God will always be with us, right? Shall tribulation, or distress, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or danger, or sword? For it is written, for your sake we're being killed all day long. We're regarded as sheep to be slaughtered. No, in these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. For I'm sure that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor rulers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor anything else in all of creation will be able to separate us from the love of God. Again, we can read all of these things, and we can know that, yeah, things are going to get difficult. God is going to be with us. But it doesn't always take the sting out of the things that happen. And it's not going to take the sting out of the things that happen. We look at Job. He lost his children. He lost his possessions. His wife turned against him. His friends turned against him. Joseph, his brothers threw him in a pit, sold him as a slave. He works up, he's doing well for, his master, and then he gets the false accusation of sexual misconduct and is thrown into prison. Moses, Hannah, because of lack of a child. Elijah, who gets depressed because he's constantly facing opposition. Esther. We could go on and on and on. But these types of individuals, or the example of these individuals, I think sometimes show us a way, or at least set an example of how we are to view our lives. I'm going to use another example too, one that we cite periodically, just because it's too good not to cite. And we could argue, all right, well, maybe he didn't have doctrine quite right. Okay. But when it comes to his personal faith and attitude, I think he had it. And the person I'm talking to is Horatio Spafford. He was a very successful lawyer, and he invested heavily in Chicago real estate back in the 1870s. And guess what? There was a big fire in Chicago, right? And financially he was devastated. 1873, he and his family were planning on visiting Europe. So he sent his wife and daughters on ahead. Guess what? The ship sank. He lost 4 daughters in that. He sailed to England a little later to meet his wife, and it was at the location where the ship sank that his wife and daughters had been on that he penned some words that I think are very familiar to all of us. When peace, like a river, attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. Now he was going to go on, and he was going to have more problems. This is an individual who we find he's dedicated to what he thinks he needs to do to serve God. But tragedy just continues to strike. And, that's the way life treats some people. It doesn't make him a bad person because it happened. And, I think every parent in here can imagine the pain that he and his wife suffered. And all of us have lost loved ones at some time or other. Yet how do we deal with this? And the words that he penned, we put into songs. Song, as a matter of fact, in the songbooks, it's number 626. And I've asked Brent if he would lead us in that song. And as we sing those words, let's think about how would I face those difficulties? And how would I help a fellow Christian as we face those difficulties? Brent?
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my Lord has taught me to say, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. Though Satan should buffet, though trial should come, let this blessed assurance control, that Christ hath regarded my helpless estate, and hath shed his own blood for my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. My sin, oh, the bliss of this glorious thought. My sin, not in part, but the whole, is nailed to his cross, and I bear it no more. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord, oh my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. And Lord, haste the day when the veil shall be sung, the clouds be rolled back as a scroll, the trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend. Even so, it is well with Thank you, Brett.
So, we can see certainly the passages teach that we should have faith in God, that we should be able to overcome these problems. But to say that we have all of these passages to teach us, there's an additional step there, obviously. We have, to understand that, yes, God promises this, but we have to have faith that those promises are, in fact, so good that we can bear all of those difficulties that we face. And our time is gone, so I'm not going to read, all of these passages, but let me just read this one in 1 Peter chapter 5. Therefore humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you at the proper time, casting all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Be of sober spirit, be on the alert. Your adversary the devil prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. But resist him, be firm in your faith, knowing that the same experiences of suffering are being accomplished by your brethren who are in the world. After you have suffered for a little while, the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself perfect, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. Is it well with your soul? Easy to say that when times are good. Is it well with your soul when we face the tragedies? Well, we have examples of people who did overcome, even though they were suffering such great pain. Overcoming doesn't take away all of the pain, but it just helps us through to reach the other side.